Hi everyone, I am back for another walkthrough to look at the Spacious Tarot. I actually got this the same day that the Lost Tarot came in, and so I really have dove right into the Lost Tarot because that's what I was really waiting for. But I did want to get this up because a couple people had wanted to see a walkthrough of this, so I did want to get this one up. This is a deck that was, I'll have to get into it where I can actually see. This is first edition 2019. This is by Carrie Mallon, and the artist, I do not have my glasses on. The artist is Annie Rugt. Maybe it's bigger in here. Annie. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. It's R-U-Y-G-T. I'm not sure what you do with a GT there. So there you go. That's the artist here. Carrie Mallon, of course, has been around forever in the tarot community, and I had seen some of the images, and I did think, okay, that looks really pretty. It caught my attention, but it didn't like scream it. I hadn't seen all of the images. And I think when it was coming out, I really wasn't buying any decks and wasn't in the market really to buy any decks for a few months. And so it just kind of went under the radar because of that. And then I've just had so many people in the last month or so, and probably before that I'm just not remembering, but I have had so many people say, I don't know how long this has actually been, like people have gotten their copies, so maybe that's why it's been in the last month. Regardless, I've had so many people say to me, you need to get this deck. Like, this is going to be right up your alley. This is something that you want to get. It's kind of a pip style deck. You will want this deck, and the size is really good. And then finally, my friend Carol on Instagram, she had said, you will really like this deck. The size is nice. It's a little bit smaller than an average tarot deck. And just the openness, the spaciousness. I do think the name, from what I've seen, is very apt. It leaves things quite open to interpretation, while again giving the nod to, this is the theme of these two decks in a row that I'm doing, is that they're giving you scenes and they're giving you nods to the Rider-Waite-Smith if that's what you do, but it's quite open and leaves that open for reading the way that I read, which is much more about numerological progression and the elements. So again, I was told by numerous people, and then when Carol, I think she sent me some pictures on Instagram, she's like, I really think that you would like this deck. I'm like, okay, fine. Let's see what this is all about. So that's what we are doing. So it comes with a really lovely box. It has that kind of Baba Studio style box in terms of like a clamshell that stays, it's got a nice tightness to it, so it stays not magnetic, but it stays nice and tight. Yeah, you wouldn't want to dump it upside down with the cards in it, but just sitting on your shelf. Okay, now I've got these probably all. Smart move, Kelly, smart move. Okay, before I bend something, let me just go ahead and take the cards out. It's really nice. It's got a nice feel to it. Matte kind of thing. It says this space is for you. It's kind of giving you the space to play in. So it's quite lovely. It comes with a little guidebook. Let me zoom in here. Nice about this is it fits in the box, so you don't have a separate guidebook, which I appreciate. It has your table of contents with your different suits. It has a note from the creator. It has a note about tarot, bonding with the deck, components of the deck, understanding the major arcana, understanding the minor arcana, so going, what are the different, talking about laying them out in rows and what the different rows might mean. So this really has, in a small space, I feel like a good intro. I'm sorry, I think that was probably like this. I was not looking up at the viewfinder. I apologize, but I'm just going to keep going. Already you can see there's a nice space being made for somebody to pick this up as a first tarot. Going into the numbered cards, what the numbers can stand for, and understanding the court cards, what can the court cards relate to. There is a change. There are child, explorer, guardian, and elder, which I quite like. And so she talks about that. She says that a note on gender, we have opted to use gender neutral titles for the court card, as these aspects of personality can come forward in people of any gender identity. We have kept the traditional titles of most major arcana cards, but remember that the same applies to the majors. For example, the energy of the Empress and the Emperor are both present in anyone. So it talks about that. From what I remember, I've skimmed through this really quickly. I don't think there are any humans in this deck, other than I think some skeletal hands maybe in the death card. And so then it has this tarot spread here, a 3-card spread, a note about reversals. Some people use them, some people don't. Different ways that you could use it: resistance, the shadow, internal versus external, or exclamation point. I've talked about this before. I've tried a number of times. I tried out using reversals. It's not something that's for me, but the closest I got for it working for me was as an exclamation point, like just pay attention here. So I do like that. I like the idea of it: internal, external. So she gives you some options that you don't need to use it at all, but if you want to, here's some different ways that you can use it. And then it gets into the cards. I do like little books that have these where you can see where the suits would be. So you can kind of grab pretty close to where that might be. That's a feature I quite like in books. There's no images of the cards here. You have the title, the number, the title, a couple main keywords such as potential, leap, and adventure. And then you have the Fool beckons you to leap into the expansive landscape. Your potential is as limitless as the glorious sky before you. Be open to experience. Be one with the magic as it unfolds. Choose to view your current circumstance as an adventure, for that is what they are. Anything could happen from here. As the number 0, the Fool is the infinite spiritual energy that animates everything. The energy takes shape and form as it moves through you. In this way, the Fool connects you to the cosmos at large. As Rumi said, you are the universe in ecstatic motion. Sorry, I can't read today. You might be required to take a risk in order to fulfill the potential of this card. What might happen if you let pure life energy lead the way? You could choose to remain on the precipice, but doesn't your soul long to soar? You may not know for certain what the future holds, but it will always contain the meaning if you choose to seek it. And so I should have been holding that up, but you know, we're not perfect here. So that's what you're getting here, or this is an example of what you are getting. So it's a nice little sinking into what the card means and a couple keywords. Again, I feel like this is even though it's a small little guidebook, I feel like it does give you a foundation. If you came to this deck and it was your first tarot deck, you've got a nice foundation. What are the major arcana? How do we look at those major arcana? What are the minor arcana? How do we look at the pips? What are the numbers? What do the numbers mean? What are the courts? What do the courts mean? Here's a spread, a nice easy 3-card spread to work with. And now here's the meanings for the cards. So I actually think this is a great little guidebook. You know, you're just not going to tell you everything about tarot in this size book, but it does give you a nice place to step from. So quite like that. These are just 2 stickers that came with it. The Hermit card as a sticker, which is gorgeous, and I love this. I'm going to put this in my Midori with the moon. So those were in the package. I'm pretty sure this was a Kickstarter. I did not back the Kickstarter. I purchased it afterwards, and so I'll put a link to that below. As far as I'm aware, it's still available and something that you can get. These are the backs of the cards, which are very simple. Just sort of a sky scene with, it's not bright white like stars, it's kind of pastel tones kind of sprinkled across. So it's just a very neutral, spacious spacious backing. Okay, so let's take a look at the card. So we already talked about the Fool card. Again, there's no people here. You're just beckoned to run and jump off the cliff, and hope that there is ground not too far beneath, or that there is water underneath, or that there is a giant eagle from Lord of the Rings that you can land on its back and swoop off. It's that sort of faith to run and jump, which is beautiful. Here we have the Magician, a very traditional. We have the wand here, we have the cup, we have the coin, we have the sword, we have the lemon scot, and showing up here as well. And so it's the tools of the magician. You know, it's for you to take the tools and go and use them. Go take these tools and go manifest, right? There is a beckoning so far that I've seen. You know, it's that beckoning you to jump off the cliff. It's that beckoning of you to pick up the tools. It's not somebody else in the deck picking them up. It's you. These are here for you to pick up and use, which I think is beautiful. The High Priestess, again, like you could pick this up and swish it around in the water and put this to your ear and listen to the sounds of the High Priestess. I like the use of water. I like the use of the shell. I like yes, is that a pearl? I think it's a moon. Anyways, it's almost like you both, right? Obviously, everything can be multiple things. But you have that concept of the moon being brought into the shell or the pearl. And so it's simple and it's clean. But I think that it gives you that information, and again is asking you to pick up the shell and dial the High Priestess. Here we have the beautiful Empress. I actually really love the bird here. I love just the open meadow. Again, it's spacious, it's expansive. The perspective is if you're laying on the earth, that you're just kind of laying there in a field of flowers, getting in touch with the earth, being connected with creation and creativity. Very Mother Earthy feel, and I love the beautiful hawk that is there as well. This one is so interesting. I saw this one as the Emperor, and I really love it because we go from the wildflowers here to the neat rose. The bright red of the poppy is gorgeous, but we have those rows here that are happening. This is definitely something that is planted. This doesn't grow naturally here. This has been structured into planting of these flowers. And so you have flowers in both of them, but one is that more just naturally connected to the natural order of things, and one is much more of that structured feel that you gain with the Emperor. Beautiful Hierophant. I mean, I absolutely love that Hierophant. This is that ancient place of wisdom and knowledge. And I just think there's so much we don't even know. There's so much who made these and why did they make them and how do they work, and it's beautiful. I think it's gorgeous, and again, it's open. There isn't a pope there that kind of pulls you into religion versus spirituality. There's just a sacred space that you are beckoned to come step into the stones, that is just really beautiful and open, and yet does give you the sense of the Hierophant. I love this. I saw this, yeah, again, I did a quick skim through these, and I absolutely love the lovers as almost like two strands of DNA, and it takes both of them to come together. I just think that's gorgeous. Love this Chariot. I don't often love my Chariot cards. It's my birth card. I sometimes like them, but sometimes I don't love them. This I really love. It's that fast moving water between cliffs. You know that's getting ready to drop down into a waterfall, and so you get that sense of movement and kind of energy banging against the walls of the cavern, but it's still moving straight ahead, and it's moving forward in its path. Again, get on your kayak and ride that ride it, right? Ride that river, down the river. It's beckoning you to have the confidence to get on that river and ride those currents. I love the Strength card as this desert. I don't live around a desert at all. I'm in Midwestern United States. But I do have a friend, the Bard's Lament, who is does live in a desert area, and so we've talked a lot about cactuses or cacti. We've talked a lot about desert connotations, and there is a lot of strength, and there's a lot of resiliency. There's a lot of digging deep, roots digging deep, using the resources that I think actually works beautifully for the strength. I mean, there's something about just stepping into a desert for like a walkabout, or I know that's Australian, but you know, the idea of kind of going out on a journey and what you're going to find, and that connection that you're going to make internally that's going to bring you back even stronger. I don't know, I think that works really gorgeous. You've seen the cute little hermit sticker. I'm so glad that there's no borders. I mean, this is an adorable sticker, but I would not have wanted the cards to have borders like that. You know, it's just so simple. Come into the woods, pick up the lantern, and go start to make wisdom out of the knowledge that you've accumulated. This deck feels like an invitation. Here we have the Wheel of Fortune. It's an invitation to move within the cycles of the wheel. You've got the different cycles of the seasons. Simple, beautifully poignant. Love this Justice card. Love the simplicity of the rock having dropped in. I love the yin-yang kind of feel with the black and the white, and then understanding that the effects that ripple out from that sense of clarity. You drop that clear message, that clear thought, that clear action, that clear decision, and those effects are going to ripple outward. I just think that's a gorgeous Justice card. The Hanged One, I mean, come on, it's the moon hanging there, or the earth hanging there. Which one is the hanged one, right? We're on the hanged man. We are in the position of the hanged one, the moon in the sky, looking back at our earth and getting perspective. Simple, beautiful, it works, right? Here we have the Death card. You know, I would have preferred to keep that going, right? Keep this simple invitation, no hands that are there, no figures that are there, just really a beckoning, an invitation to pick up a handful of dirt even, or something like that. I don't know, right? So I kind of wish that there wasn't these skeletal hands here, but it is a beautiful image of death, and it is very simple, and it still is that act of picking up the flower that we see associated in the Death card. That is that blooming again. That is something ended, yes, but are you going to pick up the next life? So it works really beautiful. It's still a beckoning. I just would have personally loved to have continued that theme of even just that, right, without the hands at all. But it's still gorgeously done. This is an interesting Temperance card. We have this, again, combination of water and fire that we see, but it's so funny because you would, it's not a reflection. It feels like, okay, maybe I'm looking at a reflection, but we're not. We're looking at, we have the fire here, we have a watery feel and almost watery droplets going through as well. I don't know if it actually talks about the cards. Let me look. Temperance gives you the power to alchemize seemingly opposite forces. Fire and ice do not have to be at odds. Indeed, these different forces can combine to create something new. Smoke. Perhaps in this moment, your magic. Look for ways to moderate energies. Remember as a human being. Yeah, no, it does not talk about. It doesn't talk about the image in terms of what's happening here, but that understanding of these could be stalagmites is what I keep seeing. It's almost like you're being in a cave and you're seeing the reflection, but these could be icebergs. We definitely have melting water. So it is that combination of fire and water that we do think about with, and then I guess this is a smoke in between. So it's that when these two things come together, something new is created out of that. Love this Devil card. It's so stark here. Let's see what they say about, this does evoke, again, an expansiveness, a spaciousness. I guess I should use spacious rather than expansionness because of the name of the deck. It challenges you to enter the realm of shadows. Where are you experiencing contraction? What darkness is within, without, and around you? Resistance might sway you to avoid this difficult space, but you can't find liberation until you're willing to confront your starkness. So it's going in and it's that having that real conversation, that let's face the facts here. Where have you given away your power? Where have you given over your responsibility? There's a definite starkness to this feeling of this card, and I think it's beautiful. Love the Tower. In many ways traditional, but I love that it's that sort of meditation type of rocks. There are little rock towers that you see that people place along trails and things like that. But there is a firm foundation there. So very traditional feeling, but works with the deck. Love the Star card. I mean, it's a star card. There's a star in amongst a bunch of trees. If you're down here in those trees, you really can't see your way, but to be able to look up and kind of orient yourself to the North Star is going to help you to navigate, which I think is gorgeous. Moon card is beautiful. That's kind of a take on that with the sticker. It's the moon. And the sun is gorgeous and clean and simple. It is the sunflower in all its glory, in all its confidence, reflecting the sun back. You know, it's like a sun reflecting the sun. That it's just beautiful. It's that sense of joy and happiness that comes from being fully who you are. I really like this Judgment card. It's, again, inviting you to step forward into the next space. There's a sense of clean, almost coolness here in this whiteness that you're not getting really in any of these cards. So in some ways it has a feel of starkness, but in an opposite sense of the Devil. But that starkness is saying, okay, stop and assess. Because that's what for me, the Judgment card is. But now step into, and then invites you to step into, see things with clarity, and then let's step into the next phase. So I think that works really beautifully. And then you have the World here with the different signs here of the constellation signs here, and then you have sort of this dark mountain range. You've got the swirling cycles that are happening in the water. It's not my absolute favorite of all the cards. This is a little bit dark feeling for the World card. I expected when I turned it over to see like the Earth in all its glory, or something, just a simple Earth, just like we had sort of the moon here, just having sort of the Earth there. I'm not going to try to find it again, but you know, it works. It's not my favorite, but it works. This, however, I adore. So now we're getting into the minors, and they seem to be named the typical, let's see, Pentacles, Swords, Wands, and Cups. So yeah, so the suits are the standard, and I think all of the majors were the typical name, other than I think we have the Hanged One instead of the Hanged Man. Yeah, so just gender neutralizing that, but they didn't do that to the Empress or the Emperor or the High Priestess and the High Priest and the High Priestess. Let's see what they used for the Hierophant and the High Priestess. But as she said, those aren't gender specific. Those are in all of us, right? But she left the typical names here, other than we'll see with the court cards, they've been changed. But I think a helicopter seed like this is perfection for the Ace of Pentacles. A very, so this is much more, there are some scenes here, but this is much more of a Pip style deck, which of course I love, but I think you still get the feel for it. This feels like more of a traditional older style Two of Pentacles, but you still get that sense of juggling, and you still get that sense of movement and balance, I think, for those who read Rider-Waite-Smith. It's gorgeous. Love this Three of Pentacles, because the Three of Pentacles for me is definitely about growth, and we see all of this growth going on beneath the surface. Now in the Four of Pentacles, I love this kind of, again, pause. The pine cones are there. They're getting ready to fall, and then the seeds are going to go into the ground, which can trigger some growth. But right now, it's just this sense of pause that is with the Four of Pentacles. It's not the time yet to spread those seeds out into the world. It's time to hold on to them. That's how I see the Four of Pentacles, and it works beautifully. Here we have the Five of Pentacles. Let me see what I'm looking at. I took a picture of it and zoomed in on it because I really wasn't sure what that was. It looks to be an animal of some kind that has certainly been in some kind of a conflict and is moving towards safety, which is certainly what we would think of with the Five. There's definitely a disruption there, a disconnection, and a need to reconnect that I think is gorgeous, even though I wasn't sure what that was. I also don't have my glasses on. Size-wise, I know I didn't talk about this. I'm kind of in the throes of not being perfect about things. It's about the same width of a traditional tarot, which I think this is a pretty typical tarot, but it's a little bit shorter. So it definitely has a compact feel to it, but in terms of width, it's pretty close to a standard, what I would say would be a standard size tarot deck. But it overall feels like a smaller deck, which is nice. This is going to be great for big spreads and things like that, or just to throw in your box, in your purse or your bag or whatever. Here we have the Six of Pentacles. I love this idea that we have these two nests, and these things are going to get divvied up as they need to get divvied up. That sense there. I like more the shape of the wheel here. Everything is connected with the Six of Pentacles. So, you know, rather than that sort of rich person giving to a poor person, there's just this understanding that we're all working with these resources and everything is interconnected and needs to be kind of placed where it is best needed in some ways. Kind of what I get from this. Not entirely sure that that's correct, but it feels just more like a pip deck. Love this Seven of Pentacles. Again, you can see the nod to Rider-Waite-Smith in the growth factor here. Wait for things to completely ripen, but it's still so open to however you see the solidness of the pumpkin and the new growth as the vines are spreading outwards. I just love that. Love this Eight of Pentacles associated with the bee, that sense of things, structure and stability that's there, and a feeling of also mastery of bees making their perfect hive. The Nine of Pentacles is interesting because you're entering, it's kind of asking you, the door is open to enter into this garden and make of it what you will. The Nine is about a lot of energy that's there for you to use. How are you going to choose to use that? In a Rider-Waite-Smith, you're going to see a woman with a hunting bird. Like she's got the luxury of time and money and things in order to be able to train, do something that costs, it would be something that only higher up people would do that have the money and the time to do so. And so it's that idea of having the space and the time and the energy to do what you want. So it's like beckoning into this garden. What do you want to make of it? And then the beautiful Ten of Pentacles in the solidity of the tree that is going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to drop acorns to propagate more trees. And so you just have that sense of solid earth there. So as you can probably see, I mean, there are scenes, right? There is something to work from, but at the same time, they function very much like a more of a pip or a non-scenic deck. You don't have people acting anything out, and so it both gives you a place to gain, an insight from what is this meaning, but it leaves it open enough for you to be able to move within the card, depending on how you read. And so then for the quartz, we have the Child, which is adorable. We have the Explorer, love, love, love. We have the Guardian for the queens, and then for the kings we have the Elders and their bears, of course, and Pentacles, which I love. So that brings us to the aces. Beautiful Ace of Swords. Love this Two of Swords. It's just across swords. It still has that air and water. You bring your mind and your heart together, and that's what's going to open the swords. But it's very pip-like as well. Love this Three of Swords. It's just 3 swords. With the cracking of the ice is going to kind of open things up again, and there's going to be this growth. There is, if you look at this in the right light, there is what almost looks like a little bit of blood on the ends of tips of each sword. That gives a bit of a nod to the Rider-Waite-Smith. And you can certainly, with the cracks, read this that way, but it's very open to interpretation, which I particularly love. The take a seat and sit down, put your swords down of the Four of Swords. The Five of Swords, we definitely have a feeling of disruption here with the vulture and with the way that the swords have been scattered. And that works for me, again, as a disruptive number and also a nod to the Rider-Waite-Smith. Love this Six of Swords. Really love the sun coming up. The swords have been all picked up now. It's kind of restoring harmony here, and the movement is more in the sky itself, but we have had a movement of the swords as well. So I do love the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith in the boat movement, but I think this is really beautiful and works gorgeous as, like I said, kind of a pip deck. This is such an interesting Seven of Swords. For both Rider-Waite-Smith, I don't see the Rider-Waite-Smith as much, which is fine. But what I love is that this, again, appears to be on ice. And so what's going on beneath the surface is just how I would read the Seven of Swords in terms of a Rider-Waite-Smith image. But then as a pip, you just have the 7 from this hard foundation is where growth is going to come. It can just read as a pip deck. I know I'm repeating myself over and over, but that is the case. Also, if you can see, there is definitely a seasonal thing going on here. Now, for me, Earth is autumn, and so with the pumpkin being here, I can lean into this being sort of an autumn feel. I don't know, we'll see with the other suits. And of course, we're really seeing winter, which is how I see the swords associated with winter as well, and that is very much at hand. And the sense of clarity and coldness of winter is very much there. I love it. I love this Eight of Swords. Again, nod to the Rider-Waite-Smith, but very open. Nine of Swords is an interesting one. You definitely see maybe a little bit more of an actual scene here, and you have an actual close to the depiction of the Rider-Waite-Smith in terms of you normally would see like a frightened lady sitting up in bed. So we definitely have a frightened little, I don't know if it's a rabbit or like some kind of rabbit-like little creature. It almost looks like a chinchilla, but I don't think it has a chinchilla tail. But anyways, you do have the sense this little creature is overwhelmed. And that works for me. It works for Nightmare card of the Rider-Waite-Smith. Nines are dynamic energy, and the Nine of Swords means there is a lot going on in the mind. Whether it's positive or negative, it can be very overwhelming, and it needs to be brought down a notch. So this works quite well for me, and I think for somebody who reads Rider-Waite-Smith. But it is, quite scenic in terms of there is something going on that you can read the scene here. It's a little less pip-like. And then the Ten of Swords, again, I appreciate this. It has a nod to a bit of that destructive energy of the Ten of Swords in Rider-Waite-Smith with the tree being chopped down. But on the other hand, for me who doesn't read that way, it's just 10 swords in a stump. The lessons have been learned. There has been probably a tree felled across the time period here, but it's just 10 swords in a tree stump, and we're kind of rounding up all the things that we've learned. So it still leaves that pippish enough for me. Of course, I love that the court cards are crows and or ravens in the court cards of the swords. That makes me happy. So I have my bears and my ravens. I don't think there's any wolves, but it's still a nice nod. Child of Swords, the explorer, he's about to just dive bomb off of this cliff here. The Guardian of Swords, which would be the Queen, and then the Elder of Swords, I think, is stunning. I really do love the way that she named the court cards. It works beautiful. So that brings us to the aces. I think these are probably the most pip-like. I love this just tiny spark there that's going to grow with the ace. We have the Two of Wands here, those coming together to create this energy. We have the Three that is lighting the path forward of growth. We have the Four of, okay, let's sit here and with what we've accomplished thus far. We still got energy going. We still got more to go, but let's sit here again. Rider-Waite-Smith, you can see this beginning of celebration. We have the disruptive energy of the Fives. Again, big nod to the Rider-Waite-Smith here with the laurel wreath and that sense of accomplishment. But there is also, from a very disruptive wands all over the place, we have that sense of balance and symmetry that come back with that I see as the sixes at harmonizing. So it works really well. Seven, holding ground, definitely again a nod to the Rider-Waite-Smith there as well, but also can function as a pip. Very Rider-Waite-Smith of movement here with the Eight of Wands, but also again you do just have 8 wands. So it is very spacious. I feel like I'm repeating myself in many ways throughout this, but that's kind of the feel that you get for it. It's a beautiful, it has a beautiful juxtaposition of Rider-Waite-Smith and open space for the progression of numbers and for reading it as a pip deck that doesn't confine you to a specific way of reading. And I think that makes, I think it's smart. I think that it's smart to make decks like this because it gives the space for a broader audience to be able to work with a deck that I think is quite lovely. This looks obviously the most Marseille-like with the 9 of Wands, and then we have all the 10 wands come to bear full fruition of the Suit of Wands. We have little salamanders, which makes sense for the Child of Wands, the Explorer of Wands, the beautiful Guardian of Wands up here, and then the Elder of Wands. I like the little fire lizards or salamanders. Love this Ace of Cups that it looks like the whole world is inside. It's like you're seeing the world and the sun. It looks like you're looking at the world inside of a cup, and I think that's gorgeous. Beautiful Two of Cups. Very spring. Okay, so carrying on with the, I didn't look at that, sorry. So fire for me would be summer. I don't think you have as much chance for like a season to come out, but the sparklers, this is where my brain goes, right? The color tones feel summery. The sparklers make me think of 4th of July happening in the summertime. And so it does, for me, this can function very well as summer, even though you're actually not seeing a lot of like summer sun a lot. But it certainly can function that way, which is how I see fire. Now, I know everybody's different, so I'm just looking at this for myself. For myself, this also definitely can reflect spring, which is what I see the cups as. And I think you can, it feels like that watery spring energy for me, which is kind of where I was here. With the 3 of Cups, I do like 3 of Cups where there are 3 flowings going into one, a water thing. It's a image that I really love for the 3 of Cups, so I love that. 4 of Cups, like just let's step out of the stream for a minute. You know, if the Chariot card was like get on your kayak and ride, it's like, okay, let's pause here for a cup of tea before we really tackle further down the river. 5 of Cups, you know, again, very much a nod to the Rider-Waite-Smith with the 3 broken cups and the 2, but still functions as disruptive energy of the cups. For those that are looking at the number 5 as a shake-up or disruptive type number, it works. It's very beautiful. The 6 of Cups is this idea of nostalgia and seeing the wonder. Sit down, go sit at the beach, right? Take some cups, sit down at the beach and just kind of relive life, kind of kick back a little bit. I love the little flowers growing in each of the cups. It's that like, okay, there's hope. That sense of hope again. There is wonder and growth to happen in the 6 of Cups. Interesting 7 of Cups, because this looks a little bit more like a 5 of Cups, but with 7 cups in it. Like visually, I think this card could have worked as the 5 of Cups, you know, minus a couple of the cups. As the 7 of Cups, it doesn't work as well for me. Because the 7 for me is about new growth that comes from that sense of the 4 plus the 3. And the 7 of Cups in Rider-Waite-Smith is that idea of illusion versus reality, which I don't see as much here either. So let's just take a look and see what this probably to me is the most like, well, that's 7 of Swords. I read sneakiness and I was like, what? Why is there sneakiness in the 7 of Cups? That's kind of strange. Options and befuddlement, because you can get confused, I guess. Where are you going to grab? All of these cups are falling. You're going to have to grab the one that you want to go for, I guess. The 7 of Cups pours you a mixture of interesting options and empty illusions. Do you feel like the sky's the limit, or do you feel perplexed? I can kind of get that. I kind of now, you know, reading that, I will say, all right, I can see sort of Alice in Wonderland falling, you know, falling down the rabbit hole. You've got all these cups kind of floating and falling next to you. You've got to make a choice. Don't grab for the illusion. Grab for the, you know, grab for the one that's going to get you where it is that you need to go. But there isn't definitely a feeling of growth here for me. So this is the only one that I feel like is a little disruptive to the progression of the numbers. But can I find a way to work with it? Sure. Love the 8 of Cups. Love the 8 of Cups. Rider-Waite-Smith, nod, yes. Openness, pip-like, can still read it the way you want. Yep, it works. Well, this is probably one of my favorite cards in the deck. I love, 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 love this 9 of Cups. The Wish card in, you know, when it was the 9 of Hearts, it was a wish fulfillment card, and so, or the Wish card, and so you have that dandelion there to make a wish, and have your wishes come back to you and getting ready to fill up those cups. I love it. And then the 10 of Cups, kind of happily ever after, the rainbow that you see in the 10 of Cups, very pip-like, works. So then we have the Child of Cups with the, I love this because these are like the koi fish. And so we have the Child, we have the Explorer, we have the beautiful Guardian card, and then we have the beautiful Elder of Cups, which is really powerful feeling. So there you have it. I mean, I think it's a beautiful deck. There are just a couple. Really, the 7 of Cups, what I would say, would be the main one. Let me zoom back out. Sorry. I'm not minding my camera well for this. Really, I would say that, I mean, that has the most seen, but it still works for me. So I really think the most disruptive to the sequencing of numbers would be the 7 of Cups. And it's still 7 cups on the thing, so it's still pip-like. So it's really quite beautiful. It's got a gorgeous matte feel to the cardstock. Let's see how it's going to riffle. I don't know what I would edge this. I may not edge this deck, surprisingly. You know, obviously if I could find this exact blue, but on the other hand, I don't know. I will say that the white sides on this one doesn't bother me as much, so I may not actually edge this unless I just happen to see something that I'm like, oh yeah, that's perfect. Okay, riffles really beautifully. It's a little bit stiff because it's thicker cardstock, thicker, nice matte cardstock. It's not going to bridge. The size, you know, bridging when you have 78 cards of thick cardstock you know, you've got to have enough size to flex, and you don't have enough size or give to bridge, but that's okay. As long as I can get, you know, a good 3 riffles out of a deck. It's definitely a stiffer riffle, but you can riffle it. And the size does help with the riffle because you can get your hands around it squarely. So I generally do about 3 riffles ish, and then overhand for a while. Now when it's a new broken deck like this, like I'll probably try to get more riffles than that in just to get a really good mix, because there's nothing beats a solid riffle to me. Go like this. Nothing, you know, you just can't get that kind of mix with overhand shuffle. So getting a couple like that to kind of mix those cards up for a new deck especially is important. Okay, so let's just see here. We'll just do a what would be my equivalent to a Celtic Cross, which is at the middle, having the past, having the future, position of fire, position of air, position of water, position of earth. And then I would bring this down a little bit so everything kind of fits. And then as above, so below, or do this, don't do that. There is a darkness to the wands that's kind of interesting, and I don't, you know, this could just be this particular layout. And I will say that some of the darks are quite dark, like these darker cards are quite dark, and see these kind of darker tones. So there is, it's not a overly bright, even though there are spots of beautiful light. There is a depth to the tonality that I think maybe you wouldn't expect given, you know, the overall kind of sweetness, because there is a bit of a sweetness, right? There is a, when you first see some of the images, there is a degree of, oh, this is, you know, it has a sweet energy to it. But at the same time, it's not like the colorations are kind of sugar-coated candies or anything like that. I do wish I could give it a bridge, but I understand why I can't. It does riffle well, though. I'm just going to lay out another one just because I'm curious. So I don't really want that to come across as a negative, but just to note that while there is a richness of color, there isn't a brightness of color, except for occasionally you get a little bit of pops. That makes sense because that's overcast winter sky in the winters. So I don't know if that's going to pick up, like that has that pop of brightness, but most of the cards have a bit of a muted feel to the coloration. Then you do get some that pop out. So I'm not sure if that's really going to pick up well in the video, but I wanted to definitely mention that because it's something, when I laid out that first 9 card, I was like, I kind of would have thought, you know, seeing this from afar, like before I owned it, I kind of would have thought it would be a lot brighter, a lot more primary color brightness, and it isn't that. And but it really is beautiful. It feels fantastic. But just be aware, it's not there's not intense colors. There's intense colors. Oh, it's so hard, right? The words, there are intense colors, but for the overall, there is a bit of a muted tone to the overall tone of the deck. I think that's maybe, because you can even see this with the Elder, like it's fairly dark. He doesn't pop out of here as you might see in some really high saturated decks, but it's actually quite lovely. So there you go. This has been a look at the Spacious Tarot. I'm really pleased with it. I do think it has a beautiful space for, again, It's not a pip deck because there are scenes there and you can get a sense of what the card means, but it does for the most part leave it open for interpretation. And the other thing is that there is a sense of most of the cards, not all of them, but most of those cards, there is that sense of being invited into the scene. So it's not so much like you're watching a story playing out, you know, in the card itself, but you're being invited, and it holds true to the inside of this box where it says this space is for you. That I think really holds true here, because it really does feel like you're being invited into this space. What are you going to do with these cards, and what are you going to do with, can you step into the Magician and create? Well, can you step into the High Priestess and go deep? It does have an invitation inherently in the cards that I think is quite beautiful. So there you go. I hope that this helps. Again, I had quite a few people who knew that I had purchased it. They were like, can you please put a walkthrough up? And so there we go. I hope you enjoy this, and I will talk to you later.